Now, here is a serious leak. We have now a revelation that federal prosecutors were at least exploring criminal charges against WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange. This is a bombshell, and it comes basically, as far as we can tell, because a prosecutor made a mistake and inserted Assange's name in an unrelated filing, a kind of a cut and paste error, referring to Assange as, quote, charged, and writing the complaint should, quote, remain sealed until Assange were to be arrested. Now, the U.S. attorney says the filing was made in error. Assange right now, of course, still hiding out in Ecuadorian embassy in London and fears arrest from perhaps more than one country. Now, let's be clear about this story before we go any further. No one knows if this leak means that there are charges that would be brought because of WikiLeaks' 2010 publishing of secret diplomatic cables, something the Obama administration explored but declined to do, or the more salacious, more recent story of leaking information that is allegedly traced back to Russian hackers. We also don't know if the charges would only be based on the publishing of material, which sounds a lot like what news organizations do, or to some other larger crimes, like actively conspiring with a foreign country or actively stealing material. We do know, though, before I turn to my experts, some salient fact here. In Bob Mueller's investigation, he's already referred to WikiLeaks in that indictment of 12 Russian hackers. He called it, quote, Organization 1, and identified it as allegedly the place that Russia used to get their stolen emails out. I'm joined now by John Flannery, a former federal prosecutor, and Betsy Woodruff, a reporter for the Daily Beast. This is a story that many people have speculated about, but Betsy, this is the first time we've seen any public reference in any federal Justice Department material about doing this. So while it hasn't been done, that alone is big. What's your view?
This is a mistake with massive consequences, not just for America's diplomatic relationship with the government of Ecuador and with the government of the United Kingdom, but also, of course, for the DOJ. This sort of pulls back the curtain in terms of how the United States government is thinking about Julian Assange. Now, one important word of caution here, as you indicated a little earlier, is that we have no idea what he could be charged with, and it's entirely within the realm of possibility that these charges are not exactly showstoppers. You know, one cybersecurity expert who I was in touch with earlier today pointed out that in the past it's been reported that Julian Assange hacked or somehow spied on the Ecuadorians who were hosting him in the Ecuadorian embassy. If he were to use some tool like phishing in order to enact or use that type of surveillance, then that could potentially implicate him for computer crimes. That could be a crime totally unrelated to the privacy, secrecy work that he's been doing that's made him world famous over the last decade or so.
Which is a good caution, although, John Flannery, I'm not sure that if the activity occurred wholly outside of U.S. jurisdiction with no U.S. nexus, and I know it's Friday night, I don't mean everyone to get excited, I don't know that they'd have much there, but let's start with the most straightforward interpretation legally, John. If this were to be a charge only for the publishing of material by, I guess, the Trump DOJ, would that be concerning because that would potentially apply to all kinds of other publishers?
Well, I think that the publishing of material alone, without more, would be close to the protections we've given to journalists. But I think the differences that we'd have to look at here, we'll have to wait and see the complaint or the indictment, the results, if there is one, would be, did he cooperate with Guccifer II? Did he have an intent to interfere in our election and to do irreparable damage concurrently in 2016
and you're
when
talking
the election was on?
Conspiring, but if it was just for publishing, like take the 2010 cables, which the Obama folks looked at, do you think that kind of prosecution could hold up in court just for publishing?
Well, you're talking about Chelsea Manning then, or
yes.
You're talking? Yes. Well, there was also a charge in that might distinguish that. That is, they held off prosecuting, so it's said, but he was involved in being asked about decryption by Manning. And if he had done that, he might move himself into a different category. And there's the question of knowledge, intent, and the kind of conduct, and for what purpose. And the communication with Guccifer, and the more recent one, if that's the one, involved timing with Guccifer for the release of the information that would directly have more momentum and affect the election. So I think that's different than a journalist just publishing what he has. Again, we're we're theorizing based on what has been public before about Guccifer and whether it was passed. There's like a daisy chain. Did it come from the Russians to him? We believe so. And then it involved Roger Stone. And then we have Bannon saying he got it. And I'm not sure we can accept his story, but that admission is significant because it connects the Russians through this interference with the campaign. And it's sort of like the second act in, I think, Mueller's investigation.
Right. Betsy, the filing itself doesn't have a direct link at all to the special counsel probe. Do you have any clues that suggest whether this might be related?
We just don't know, and I would feel a little bit nervous speculating. One thing we do know is that people in the WikiLeaks orbit for years now have thought that there was a sealed indictment in the Eastern District of Virginia where this filing was made against Julian Assange, and that's one of the major sources of concern for people in Assange's orbit, that charge was already on the books secretly. It's totally plausible that that was there and that it predates the Mueller investigation. At the same time, also plausible that this is a new thing and that it's part of the special counsel probe.
And the cut and paste type of leaks, it's just fascinating for those of us who've been watching this, and we will stay on the story until we get more actionable clues. Betsy Woodruff and John Flannery, thanks to both of you. Hey, I'm Ari Melber from MSNBC. You can see more of our videos right here, or better yet, subscribe to our YouTube channel below. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us, and we appreciate that.